The first time I noticed something was wrong, it was because of the silence. Not the normal kind you get late at night, but a heavy, suffocating silence that felt like it was pressing against my ears. I had just moved into the house 2 weeks earlier, a small place at the edge of town surrounded by overgrown trees and a rusted fence that looked like it hadn't been touched in years. It was cheap, and at the time that was all that mattered. That night, I woke up at exactly 3:12 a.m. I didn't check the time right away, but something had pulled me out of sleep. It wasn't a sound. It was the absence of one. No wind, no insects, no distant cars. Just nothing. I lay there staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself it was normal, until I heard it. A slow, deliberate knock. Not on the front door. Not on a wall. It was coming from inside the house. I sat up immediately, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. The knock came again, 3 times, evenly spaced. It sounded like it was coming from the hallway just outside my bedroom. I didn't move. I couldn't. Then came a voice. "Are you awake?" It was soft, almost whispering, but it was right there, just outside the door. I held my breath. Every muscle in my body locked. I lived alone. I knew that. I had checked every room before going to bed. "Are you awake?" the voice repeated, slightly louder this time. I didn't answer. The doorknob began to turn slowly, the faint click echoing in the silence. I grabbed the nearest thing I could find, a lamp, and held it like a weapon, staring at the door as it creaked open just a few inches. But no one came in. The voice stopped. The movement stopped. After a few seconds, the door gently closed again on its own. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. In the morning, I tried to convince myself it was a dream. Sleep paralysis, maybe. Stress. But when I walked into the hallway, I saw something that made my stomach drop. 3 faint marks on the wall beside my door. Like someone had knocked, but not with their hand. They looked like impressions made by fingertips pressed too hard into the paint. I moved out 3 days later, but even now I still wake up sometimes at exactly 3:12 a.m., expecting to hear that voice again. And sometimes I swear I do. The second story came from a long drive I took last winter. It was supposed to be a shortcut, a quiet road that cut through miles of forest, saving me at least an hour. At least, that's what the map said. The road was empty when I turned onto it. Completely empty. No streetlights, no houses, just trees on both sides stretching endlessly into darkness. My headlights carved a narrow path ahead, and everything beyond that was pitch black. About 20 minutes in, I noticed a car behind me. It hadn't been there before. I checked my mirrors, frowning. The road was straight for miles. There was nowhere it could have come from without me seeing it. But there it was, a pair of headlights trailing at a steady distance. I told myself it was nothing. Just another driver. But then it started to get closer. Not quickly, not aggressively. Just slowly, steadily closing the gap between us. I pressed the gas a little, increasing my speed. The car behind me matched it perfectly. That's when I noticed something strange. The headlights didn't move. No bouncing, no shifting, no change in angle. It was like they were fixed in place, unnaturally steady, no matter how uneven the road got. A cold feeling crept up my spine. I slowed down. The car behind me slowed too. I sped up again. It matched me again. I decided to pull over, thinking maybe it would just pass. I eased the car to the side of the road and stopped, my hands gripping the steering wheel. The headlights stopped behind me, but the car didn't pass. Instead, the lights went out. I sat there in complete darkness, my breath shallow, my eyes locked on the rearview mirror. I couldn't see anything. No shape, no movement. Just black. Then, slowly, something stepped into the faint glow of my brake lights. A person. But something about them was wrong. They were too tall. Their limbs looked off, like they didn't bend the way they should. And they were walking toward my car in a slow, uneven way, like they were still figuring out how to move. I didn't wait. I slammed the gas and sped off, not daring to look back again. I drove until I hit the main highway, the bright lights and passing cars making me feel like I could breathe again. But when I finally stopped at a gas station and looked at the back of my car, there were handprints on the trunk. Long, thin handprints. Like something had been holding on. The third story is something my cousin told me, and I wish he hadn't. He used to work as a night security guard at an old hospital that had been shut down years ago. The building was massive, most of it abandoned, with only a small section still used for storage. His job was simple: walk the halls, check for intruders, and make sure everything stayed locked. The first few nights were uneventful. Then he started hearing footsteps. At first, he thought it was just the building settling. Old places make noises, especially at night.
But these weren't random sounds.
They were footsteps.
Slow.
Measured. Always behind him. He tested it one night. Stopped walking suddenly. The footsteps stopped too. Started walking again. They followed. He told himself it was an echo. It had to be. But then he heard something that made him freeze. Breathing. Right behind him. He turned around quickly, shining his flashlight down the hallway. Nothing. Just a long, empty corridor stretching into darkness. But the breathing didn't stop. It was still there.
Close.
Too close. He quit the next day. But before he left, he checked the security footage from that night. He told me he wishes he hadn't. Because on the screen, he could see himself walking down the hallway. And right behind him, something was following. Not a person. Not anything normal. It was tall and thin, its body twisted in ways that didn't look possible, its head tilted at an unnatural angle as it moved silently just inches behind him. And at one point, it leaned forward, right next to his ear, as if it was whispering something. The fourth story happened to a friend of mine who lived alone in an apartment building. It started with small things. Objects moving slightly, doors left open when she was sure she had closed them. She thought someone might be breaking in. So she set up a camera in her living room. The first few nights, nothing happened. Then one morning she checked the footage. At first, everything looked normal. The room was empty, still, just as she had left it. Then, around 2:47 a.m., something changed. The bedroom door slowly creaked open. But she was asleep inside. No one came out.
No one went in.
The door just opened. She kept watching, her heart racing. Minutes passed. Then, from the darkness inside the bedroom, something moved. A shape, low to the ground, crawling. It slowly emerged into the living room, its movements jerky and unnatural. It didn't stand up. It stayed low, dragging itself across the floor, its head turning in sharp, sudden motions. Then it stopped, right in the center of the room. And it looked directly at the camera. She told me she couldn't describe its face. Not clearly, just that it didn't look right, like something trying and failing to look human. Then, without warning, it rushed toward the camera. The screen went black. When she checked the camera in real life, it was still there, sitting exactly where she had placed it, but the memory card inside was empty. The last story is the one that bothers me the most. It happened to me again not long ago. I had moved into a new place, far from the first house. Different city, different environment. I told myself everything before had just been coincidence, stress, imagination. For a while, things were fine. Then one night, I woke up to a familiar feeling. That silence. Heavy. Suffocating. I didn't move at first. I didn't want to. But then I heard it. A slow, deliberate knock. 3 times. Coming from inside the house. My chest tightened as I stared at the bedroom door. I didn't want to look, but I did. The doorknob was already turning.
Slowly. Carefully.
Just like before. The door creaked open a few inches. And a voice, soft and familiar, whispered from the darkness beyond. I found you. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. The door opened a little wider. But this time, something stepped inside. The road shouldn't have been there. I remember checking the map twice before leaving, making sure I wouldn't get lost. It was a straight route, nothing complicated. But somewhere between the last gas station and the long stretch of empty fields, my signal dropped, and the road I was on no longer matched anything I had seen before. At first, I thought it was just a detour, a temporary route. But the longer I drove, the more wrong it felt. There were no signs, no houses, no lights, just an endless, narrow road cutting through darkness, with tall, dead-looking trees leaning inward, as if they were trying to block out the sky. My headlights barely reached beyond a few meters, and everything else was swallowed in black. I checked my phone again. No service. That's when I noticed the fog. It wasn't there a second ago, but suddenly it was everywhere, thick, heavy, rolling across the road like it had been waiting for me. I slowed down, gripping the steering wheel tighter as visibility dropped to almost nothing. And then I saw someone, standing in the middle of the road. I slammed the brakes, the car skidding slightly before coming to a stop just a few feet away. My heart was racing as I stared through the windshield. It was a man, or at least it looked like one. He was standing perfectly still, facing away from me. His clothes were old, dirty, hanging loosely off his body. His arms were at his sides, stiff and unmoving. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then slowly he began to turn. Not normally, not like a person should. His head turned first, twisting unnaturally until it faced me completely, while his body stayed facing forward. I felt my stomach drop as I saw his face. It wasn't right. His eyes were too wide, reflecting the headlights in a way that made them look almost white. His mouth was slightly open, stretched into something that wasn't quite a smile. Then his body followed. But it didn't turn smoothly. It jerked, snapped, like something forcing it to move. I didn't wait. I slammed the gas, the car lurching forward as I swerved around him. For a split second, as I passed, I saw him clearly through the side window. He wasn't watching the road. He was watching me, smiling wider. I drove as fast as I could, my hands shaking, my breath uneven. The fog seemed to close in tighter, pressing against the car, making it feel like I was driving through something alive. Then, I saw headlights in my mirror. Relief hit me instantly. Another car. Finally. I slowed down slightly, thinking I could follow them, maybe get out of whatever place I had ended up in. The headlights behind me got closer, steady and bright. But something felt off. They weren't moving like normal headlights. They weren't bouncing with the road. They were perfectly still. Too still. I frowned, watching them carefully. And then they blinked. Not turned off. Not dimmed.
Blinked. Like eyes.
A cold wave of fear rushed through me as the lights suddenly got closer, much closer than they should have in that short amount of time. I slammed the gas, the car lurching forward as I swerved around him. For a split second, as I passed, I saw him clearly through the side window. He wasn't watching the road. He was watching me, smiling wider. I drove as fast as I could, my hands shaking, my breath uneven. The fog seemed to close in tighter, pressing against the car, making it feel like I was driving through something alive. Then, I saw headlights in my mirror. Relief hit me instantly. Another car. Finally. I slowed down slightly, thinking I could follow them, maybe get out of whatever place I had ended up in. The headlights behind me got closer, steady and bright. But something felt off. They weren't moving like normal headlights. They weren't bouncing with the road. They were perfectly still. Too still. I frowned, watching them carefully. And then they blinked. Not turned off. Not dimmed. Blinked.
Like eyes.
A cold wave of fear rushed through me as the lights suddenly got closer, much closer than they should have in that short amount of time. And then I realized something that made my chest tighten. I couldn't hear another engine. There was no sound behind me. Just those lights. Getting closer. Faster now. I pressed the gas harder, the engine straining as I tried to put distance between us. But no matter how fast I went, the lights stayed right behind me. Then, slowly, they began to rise. Higher and higher, until they were no longer at the level of a car. They were above me, looking down. I made the mistake of glancing in the rearview mirror. And I wish I hadn't, because for just a second, through the fog and darkness, I saw the shape attached to those lights. It wasn't a car. It was something tall. Too tall. Its body stretched upward into the darkness, its form barely visible except for those glowing, blinking eyes. Long, thin limbs moved around it, bending at impossible angles as it kept pace with my car without making a single sound. Then suddenly, it was gone. The lights vanished. The pressure lifted. The fog began to thin. I didn't slow down. I didn't stop. I drove until the road finally opened onto a familiar highway, bright with streetlights and distant traffic. I pulled over, my hands shaking so badly I could barely turn off the engine. For a long time, I just sat there trying to convince myself it was over, that it wasn't real, that I had imagined it. But then I noticed something. On the inside of my windshield, there were fingerprints.
Long. Thin.
And they were pressed from the inside, as if something had been sitting in the passenger seat, watching me the entire time.